For assignment 5, we're going to quantify our risk register. We have two deliverables, as we did with Module 4. The first is an assessment guide, and the second being how we apply that assessment guide against our risk register. The point of the assessment guide is to articulate what is important, what are the risks that we really want to put our focus on. In our project scope here, we specifically talk about the importance of scope and schedule. The importance of having the new completed production facility up and running by Q2 of 2018 to provide sufficient time for the product to be made and meet increasing demand. So what's really key, if we look at our three constraints, scope, schedule, and budget, it's schedule is clearly the most important, as is scope. Budget is really less important. It's almost, I wouldn't say non-important. We don't want to spend billions of dollars, but as long as we manage the budget, we're okay if we're a little bit over budget, as long as we deliver the schedule and scope. So if we look at our risks, I've reviewed my risks, I've modified my risks, and I've applied a probability and impact rating. The impact being how severe would this be on the project. Probability, how likely is it on the project. Notice I have snow in North Carolina impeding delivery of machinery. It does snow in the mountains of North Carolina. Interstate 40 through North Carolina can be shut down for periods, but it's typically not weeks or days, it's typically hours. That's not always the case, but most of the times that's the case. So our probability is very low on that one. The air filtration system is very high because having a clean room environment is critical to the manufacture of the enzyme. I've also ranked and sorted in the risk register by a combined rating. So I talk about how I can create that combined rating, multiplying the impact and probability together. So in my risk register, as I place these values, I multiply them together to come up with my combined rating. Let's look at our risk register then. Notice the risks are what I had indicated in my risk assessment. You might say, hey, this has changed since our last module. Yeah, it has. Because we always go back and look at the risks. We identify if those risks are really clearly articulating what the risk is. And it's a clear articulation, so if we come back at some point in the future, we'll remember what the risk represents. This has happened to me in the past. I've documented a risk. I come back a month later to look at it, and I don't remember what the point of the risk was. So using language to articulate the risk is really key. Now, I've converted our numeric values from our summary to actually high, medium, and low values. In the assessment guide, high is 3 points, a medium is 2 points, a low is 1 point. I multiply these values together to derive my project impact or my total severity. And notice how I've resorted my risks in order of priority. So my real focal point here is going to be on these top risks, these top 3 risks. If I go back to my assessment guide, here's my quantification guide, how I've identified my risks, but I'm also going to, a combined rating of 3 or higher will demand an active response. That's actually kind of low. I'd probably say that should be 6 or higher. And let's see how that translates to my risk register. So 6 or higher means that I'm going to have an active response. Active versus a passive response. I may use a passive response for some of these lower risks, i.e. a contingency plan or just adding some additional budget. But these are the 3 where I will put my focal point. In the next module, we'll talk about responses. Right now, I just want us to be able to articulate how we're going to quantify our risks and which of these 7 risks we'll put our focus on.